You have an identity. You have a purpose. And you belong.
Good morning, you guys. How we doing? Yeah. We're excited for Promotion Sunday. Let's give it up. Hey, I'm Matthew. I'm the middle school minister. I'm just so excited that you guys are here this morning and to just kick off another kind of official school year in student ministry. I love being back in the rhythm. I want to give a special welcome to our new sixth graders in the back. Everybody give it up for our sixth graders. Yes. Welcome. We're super glad that you guys are here. I hope we'll talk about belonging in a couple weeks, but I hope you feel like you belong here. Like I hope like this feels like a home to you and that your leaders and that these 7th and 8th graders, they like care for you and they want to see you learn and grow and just have so much fun. So we're just so glad that you guys are here. Many of you are, side note, passing out some of those half sheets. These are just for you guys to use. Those of you who are new to the ministry, this is something that me in middle school and Max in high school and our teachers a lot, we just want to put out there so that you guys can use. There's always extras in the back. And I hope it doesn't feel like school. I hope that like when you guys have them, it feels like I want to learn this. I want to jot these things down because hey, I might be biased, but like these things I think are more exciting talking about the Lord and talking about who he is even than math and science and English and all those sometimes, you know. So I hope that those are helpful to you. Over the next 3 weeks, we're going to be talking about, like you just saw in that video, the vision of RockPointe students. The vision of RockPointe students. I'm going to throw it up on the screen one more time and so that we can take a look at it together. We are loving God with all that we are while making more and better followers of Christ. That's actually RockPointe's mission. But how do we do that in student ministry? By helping you grow an independent faith. Helping you grow an independent faith. Helping you grow a what? Helping you grow a what? Independent faith. And independent, it doesn't mean, does that mean that you're like doing this thing on your own? Like, oh, I guess I'll just go off on my own and follow Jesus. Is that what I'm getting at? No. If you've been around student ministry for a while, you know this just means a faith that you own as your own, okay? That's not just your parents' faith. As you guys are growing up, you are learning how to understand and believe these things for yourself, okay? We're going to break this down into 3 weeks. It's not on the screen, but it's identity, purpose, and belonging. And today we're talking about identity, the question of who am I? Who are you? Who am I? I believe that this is one of the most important questions that any human being can ask themselves. So listen super close this morning, okay? I love John 10:10, just to kick us off. Jesus says, just kind of intro this, the enemy, he comes to steal and kill and destroy, but I came that you would have life and have it abundantly, like overflowing, that you would have life. Is there anyone in here this morning that wants life? Yes. The 8th grade boys want life. It's so funny that I'm calling you guys 8th grade boys now. I know there's people in here who want life, and these questions are what point us to life. And we're going to try to answer that first question this morning. So I'm going to pray, and then we're going to dig into it. So pray with me. God, we just totally recognize that your word is going to speak this morning. We recognize that you are working in our lives. Exactly what Michaela prayed, God, that for those of us in the room who don't know who we are, God, teach us who we are in you. Teach us, God, how you have given us an identity. Yes, make us so confident in that this morning. We love you and we praise you. Amen. All right, guys, so I have a quick story for you. There was once this young college student. He was super friendly, he was social in a bunch of organizations, and in his first year of college, his friends would write, all of his friends would kind of write encouraging notes to each other. It was like if they saw them doing something really good, they would just write a note. And so this young man, he started getting encouraging notes from other people. And the first one, like he took it and he said, wow, like this is so sweet. This is so nice. And so he took it and he had like a big open wall in his dorm room. And so he just tacked up that little note card. Oh, that's awesome. And then he got a second one about a couple weeks later. And he was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, that's so sweet. Take it, tax it right up next to the other one. The weeks go by, the months go by, that wall fills up with like really nice things, encouraging things that people are saying about this young man. And it's awesome. It's encouraging. He goes to sleep every night and he looks at that wall and he goes, man, like that is who I am. That gives me joy, gives me happiness. But one day, there was a season years later that he received another note. And this note was a little bit different. It wasn't super nice or encouraging. It was actually kind of discouraging. Like it was a hurtful note. It was a hurtful note. And so he took that one in his hand and he just like started to cry. And this guy, like he closes his door to his room and he like sat on his bed and he was just like depressed. He was just totally depressed. And he looked at his wall with all those like good encouraging notes on it. He looked at this note in his hand. He was like, who am I? Like, am I this or am I like that? Am I the guy on the wall or am I this guy that this person says I am? And I would say that in that situation, he was having an identity crisis. Have you guys ever heard of that phrase, an identity crisis? That you just do not know who you are. This guy was struggling through that. And why do I tell you that story? Because like the boy from this story, we're constantly told that we're valued by how others see us, right? How we act, what we have, our social media presence. We love to look around at what other people are saying about us and we go, yeah, I guess that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me. Even the good things that people say, we love to cling on to those, right? But what happens when one of those things ends up being hurtful? When a person says that thing or that comment is made online, how do we feel then? How do we feel? Good or bad? Bad. We crumble, right? Like that guy, that young man. And so this is why this thinking is so dangerous about identity, because when we believe our identity is in what others say about us, we're always just trying to perform well enough to keep everybody happy, right? I got to keep putting the cards on the wall. I can't get that negative card. When identity is in what we have or the trips we take or the awesome things we get to do, then we're always kind of looking for that next trip, right? If our identity is in our social media image, we're always thinking about that next post or that perfect caption. Any of you guys relate to like, oh, you like spend so long either crafting a text or like crafting a post and then you finally post it, but then you're thinking about the next text and you're not happy with who you are today. Does anybody feel that? Maybe? Yeah? So, if these are not identities, we're left with one of the biggest questions that humanity has ever struggled with in the history of humanity, and that is, who am I? Who am I? I believe that this book, this historical collection of documents, has something to say about that. It has something that is already determined that we can just choose to trust in or not, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So as we start, and kind of as you think about where you are right now, where you are is where you are. And so I want you to think about where you are right now. At the top of your note sheet, I asked you a question. If I were to ask you individually, who are you? Who is Colin? Who is Emma? Who are you? What would you say? Am I a student? Am I an athlete? Am I a musician, a dancer, an artist, a blank? Take 15 seconds and answer that question for yourself on that page. Ready, go. Okay, so you finish that up. That's where you are, and that is okay. And we got to ask ourselves, what is identifying us right now? What do we identify most with? If I really love baseball, right, maybe I really am identifying myself with baseball, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but we're going to look at that today. Okay, when we also ask that question, we also get a little bit anxious sometimes, like, oh, do I need to go on this search, right? Like Elsa or Moana or like Lightning McQueen, right? Like, I need to go and make this journey and overcome this enemy and like figure out my like secret powers that I have. And then magically, like, I am going to figure out who I am, right? We think that it has to be a journey like that. But again, I don't think that reality is how that works either. That there is a place that we can receive an identity from that's already given. So real quick, your identity is who you are on the inside and out. Inside and out. We're going to look at how this is a collection of documents, a book about God and who he is. And so we're going to look at his creator, our creator, how he created us. And my goal today is to convince you that this is the foundation that we can build our identity on. That all these other things, baseball, art, all those things, they can sprout from your relationship with God and what God says about you. But this is the foundation. We're going to do that in 3 parts. Okay, everybody say 3 parts. First part, you were created by God. You were created by God. And we're going to talk about how you were created by God in the image of God for relationship with God. But we'll start off with creation. There's so many good scriptures that we could talk about. But God tells us in his word, Psalm 139, for God, you formed our inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you. This is a human talking, right? For I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, God. My soul knows it very well. Isaiah 45:12, I made the earth, God talking now, and created man on it. It was my hands that stretched out the heavens, and I commanded all of their hosts. I commanded it all. Isaiah 64:8, again, a person talking. Yeah, you, Lord, are our Father. We are the clay. You are the potter. We are all the work of your hand. Raise your hand if you've ever seen someone working on like clay, like a clay potter that does the little like press thing and it moves. Okay, a lot of y'all have. Yeah, isn't that so cool that 2,000, 3,000 years ago, a human being said, Lord, God, I am like clay and you are the potter. Like you are just forming me, you're making me. Hear this. You are not an accident. You are not a mistake. Take me seriously. You are not a random chance. You were thought up. You were created. You have a specific design. You were knit together. You were intricately woven, every single detail of who you are. God knew when he was making you what your personality would be like, what you would enjoy, what your family would be like, your eye color, your hair color, all those things. But man, everything from inside and out, he knew it. I have a 1-year-old. His name is Shepherd, and my wife is Annie. I hope that y'all get to know her at some point. But I always talk about Annie and Shepherd when I'm teaching. And when I was going into those first appointments, when Annie was pregnant, it was just so awesome seeing how God was crafting this little human, like exactly what Psalm 139 is talking about, that he was being knit together. If you've ever like seen a baby or talked to like a pregnant mom about what's going on, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty awesome. And he started out as a little like peanut, and then he got a heartbeat, and then he got arms and legs and a brain, and now he's a year old and he's walking around and like opening drawers and like doing all of these like intricate things, right? And guess what? You all started in your mother's womb. I started in my mother's womb, and now here we are writing notes on a sheet of paper, right? It's so wild. I literally wrote a note here. I was planning this sermon, and I just stopped, and I just said, like, I just need to worship that, like, God has created my son this way. And so for you guys, like, maybe right now is a good time to just stop and in your heart, just like worship God and just go, wow, like it is pretty crazy that you created me. Not only were you created by God, but you were created in the image of God, okay? So that's our number 2. You were created in the image of God. We could do a whole study on this. I won't go into detail on it. But at the very beginning of time, the very, very beginning of the Bible, God gives us insight into what was going on at the first days and how he created us. And this is found in Genesis 1, 25 through 27. So we're going to read it. It'll be on the screen. And God, he made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds. So he's making the animals and the livestock according to their kinds, and everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. So he's just speaking these things into existence. Cow, boom, there's a cow, right? Yeah, pretty crazy. God saw that it was good. That it was what? Good. He was like, cow, good, right? Cows are good. Then God said, he has the shift. Then God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, like after God's likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over the livestock, over the cows, over all the earth, over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own, what? Image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. There's two things I want us to see here. Again, you could spend a whole week on this, probably a whole month on this every week. Did you notice a difference between the way he described the animals and the people? How did he, what was the difference? You can raise your hand and you can answer if you think you know. Yeah? God did make man in his image. That's exactly what I'm going for. Exactly. He did. And let's look. He said, and we will get to that phrasing exactly, but he said that the animals were good. You actually got to my second point, Cody. My first point is that he said that the animals were good. What did he say about the humans? That they were also just good? Very good. He said they were very good. That is an expression that literally, like tov ma'ov, I think is the original Hebrew. Very good. Like, animals are awesome, but these creations are special. Like, these were created in my image. These are us, like the humans. So I think that's so cool. So that talks about our special value, right? Our value above just the animals or the trees or whatever else. Raise your hand if you've ever seen like an incredible sunset or an incredible like mountain view where you just see, the sun setting over the horizon. Maybe something like this picture. That's a pretty beautiful sunset, right? Have you ever thought this? That God was pleased to create that, but he was more pleased to create you than he was to create that. It made him, in a way, happier to create you than when he created that. He created that and he was like, oh, that's good. But then he created you and then he was like, chef's kiss, right? Like, yes, very good. They are very, very good. So hear that. That's the first thing. Second, what Cody was getting at, we are made in his image. That's what it says in the text. What does it mean that he made us in his image? It's kind of a weird phrase, right? Here's the definition I would give you. God gave all humans specific qualities, right? That animals and sunsets, they don't have. And these qualities reflect who God is. So like, if you solve, like humans solving crazy analytical problems, personalities, the fact that we like love each other and have relationships with each other and we cry and we laugh and all these things, those are not things that even animals do. Definitely not sunsets, definitely not the trees. Those are all good, but they're not like humans. And the way God designed us, we should be like a crystal clear mirror. Like a crystal clear mirror. That if I put a mirror up to my face, right, you would see, facing outwards, you would see yourself, right? If I pointed it up towards the lights, you would see the lights. We should be a mirror that reflects God, reflects the image of God. So when we are held up, that we should see God clearly. When we hold ourselves up, people should see God clearly. Here's the big question you may be wondering, though. Matthew, we just sang a song called Holy Forever, right? God is like holy and perfect. And like, I've got imperfections. I've got sins. Like, how am I going to like reflect the perfection of God? And I think that's a great question. I just mentioned a word a second ago. It was sin. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of sin. Yeah, sin. If you've never heard of that word before, I put it on your sheet. Sin is anything that disobeys or goes against God. Anything that goes against him. With Adam and Eve in that garden in the beginning, things were perfect. The relationship with God was perfect. And then God said, you can do anything you want in this garden except for eat this fruit, this apple from this tree. And y'all know what they did? What did they do? They ate it. They disobeyed God. They sinned. And so that mirror that was supposed to be crystal clear, all of a sudden it got distorted. Have you ever been to a fun house with like the distorted mirrors where you walk up to a mirror and you're, 3 feet tall and your head is like 2 feet wide? That's pretty much what happened when sin entered the world. And it took our crystal clear mirror of God and it messed it up. And spoiler alert, in the Bible, after that happened, people just kept messing up. Like, it just kept getting foggier. It kept distorting the perfect reflection of God. And it seemed like there was no hope. Would you guys leave the story there? Is there no hope? We're just all going to be distorted, messed up images of God? No. There is hope in this. And that brings us to our third and final piece. You are created for a relationship with God. There was a point in this story, after there were so many mess ups, God initiated a major rescue plan. And this was his plan, right? I love my people so much that I want to bring them back to that clear picture. I want to bring them back into relationship with me like things were at the beginning of time, like things were meant to be, designed to be. And there was only one way to do this. There was only one way. Scripture says that sin that separates us from God, that messes up our picture, it deserves death. Like, sin separates us from God, and it deserves a punishment, a cost. It costs something. And so God, in his grace, he said, hey, instead of my children, instead of you guys, instead of me having to pay that price for that sin that's destroyed you, I am going to send my one and only son. And he is going to, on the cross, pay for those sins and redeem us and buy us, purchase us, so that we could have that relationship with God again. Take a deep breath. Yeah, that's like the grace of God that we are breathing right now. And that's our identity that he's given us, that in Jesus Christ, what he's done on the cross, by faith, we can have a relationship with him. And we're waiting for heaven. We're waiting when it is going to be like it was with Adam and Eve. Right now, we still have to struggle through sin and still have to struggle through our distortions and things that are messed up. But here's the thing, guys. Listen. I need all your eyes just for this one point, okay? This morning, for some of you, like, he might be holding his hand out to you and saying, hey, like, I have a relationship with me. You are welcome. Like, you are loved. Just come to me. Like, come to me. Like, you are adopted. And you can't discover this identity. You can't go on the Lightning McQueen journey to discover this identity. You just have to receive it. Does that make sense? You just have to do what? Receive it. Some of you right now, you're attaching your identity to the things you do. Like, when you're honest and when you wrote out on that paper, you wrote your activity. And that's okay. We love that, like, activities are a part of our lives. They teach us important lessons. But hear it from me. That does not define your life. Because if you put football there, what happens when you don't get the starting job? What happens when you break your arm? What happens when you graduate from high school and you don't play football anymore? That's just how I look through it as a guy. But you insert that thing for you. It doesn't define you. Some of you, you attach your identity to what people are saying around you. You're like that young man with those note cards, like up on the wall. You're just like, everything that people says, that's just what I'm going to be. If my parents say I'm a straight A student, I'm going to be a straight A student, and that's good to respect your parents. But that is all of the weight that's put on just pleasing them. Every compliment a friend gives you, everything, it makes you so happy. But then when you get that negative comment, how do you feel? Not so great. Pretty sad, right? Speaking of, like the young man from the story, do you guys remember how that story ended off? He was depressed. He was sitting on his bed. He didn't know what to do. I'm going to finish that story for you, okay? Because there is an ending. As he lay there in his bed, he had like a light bulb moment. Like he would even say that like God spoke to him in that moment and was like, gave him a light bulb moment. Do y'all want to know what the light bulb moment was? Do you want to know what the light bulb moment was for him? Yes. Okay. I'll just explain it this way. He went to his wall, got up from his bed, went to his wall, and he took that first one down, pin out, and just put it on the ground. And he took the next one, took the pin out, and just put it on the ground. He had a desk right next to him. He went over to the desk, and he just started writing another new card. And the first card said this: because of Jesus, you are welcomed. Like Romans 15:7. Got another one out. Because of Jesus, you are free. Galatians 4:14. He got another one out. Because of Jesus, you are forgiven. You are welcomed. 1 John 1:9. And so on, the wall just started changing. He took off those people's compliments and he started putting on God's truth. He started taking off what other people were saying about him, even though they were good. And he started putting up what Jesus had done for him and how that was his identity. You see what changed in him? Yep. He stopped looking around at others and he started looking at who God is. He started looking at what God says about him. How many of you in this room need that right now? Thank you. You can raise your hand or not. Just know in your heart, I need that. I needed that because guess what? That story was about me. Plot twist, right? Yeah, that literally was me in college. All I cared about was what people thought. And after that, I have struggled with it, but I've never had that breakdown, never been depressed as I was then. Because I know that there's a God who's given me an identity that's never going to be shaken. You guys know what I mean? This is always going to be here. God is always going to be here for us and has designed us a certain way. And through Jesus tells us exactly who we are, that we're loved and we're cared for and we're adopted, if we will just receive it. You know what I mean? So, guys, let's just take 1 minute, and I just want you to sit in silence, with God. Before we finish out in our groups, sit in silence. And if that's you, if you want Jesus to be your identity, if you are like me, and all you are looking at are the people around you and your social media presence, and what your parents say, and what your friends say, and what your coach says, and it gives you anxiety, I want you to pray with me right now. This is not like a magical prayer, But I hope that this gives you the words. Like if Jesus has his arms wide open and saying, hey, come, I have an identity for you. I hope that this allows you to go walk into his arms. Pray with me if that's you. Jesus, I recognize I have run to other things and people to form my identity. I know that you've made me in your image to have a relationship with you. I know your arms are open because of what Jesus did for me, how he died for me. I can be with you. So I believe that, and I come into your arms now, and I want to be your child. And if I've prayed this before, I'm praying it again, and I'm just resubmitting it this Sunday morning, resubmitting it this school year. 7th grade, 8th grade, 6th grade, this year is going to be a year that is defined by my identity in you, God. Thank you so much. Amen. So I want you guys to debrief that with your groups. I want you to be open. I want you to let this be the beginning of a journey kind of with your leaders. Quick expectations, just remember there are groups around you, so try to keep your volume level to just your group so you don't distract other groups. And hey, if somebody's talking, let them talk, respect them, and then when it's your turn, you can talk. Cool? Those are just quick expectations about kind of how groups go. But I love you guys. Have a great Sunday, okay?